Dear friends, here is a very short statement. Ya ko chittasa ekagata ayang samadhi. Unification of the mind is samadhi. Chattaro satipatthana samadhi nimitta. The 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation are the foundations for samadhi. This very powerful statement was given by the Bhikkhuni Dhammadina when she was speaking to her husband, Visakha, her former husband, Visakha. Dhammadina was fully enlightened at that time. And Visakha had noble attainments, but was not yet fully enlightened. So he was deeply, profoundly, I could say urgently interested in wanting to know what the profound training that would be that he could pursue to reach the goal, to reach full enlightenment. He asked about many profound questions about the Dhamma and about meditation, and this particular statement is a part of that. We hear about samadhi in terms of the jhana, having the various jhana factors. Seclusion from sense pleasure, seclusion from unwholesome states of mind, and so on. But then in this case, the samadhi nimitta could be thought of as something like the precursor or the proximate cause for the arising of samadhi. And this week, the other talks that we had on Sunday were related to mindfulness and the foundations of mindfulness. So I thought it would be wonderful today if we could try sitting in a mindfulness meditation with a lot of sincerity, trying to see whether if we can remember to keep the mind connected with the foundations of mindfulness. Is this leading us to that unification of mind, to that profound stillness, calmness, and clarity, wherein the nature of our experience, the nature of the mind, can be really so clearly seen and discovered, and wherein one can discover the temporary release from unwholesome states of mind, from all kinds of agitation and negativity. So I'm going to suggest that we try meditating on the breath. And I'm going to suggest for the form meditation, being aware of the material of physical breath. for the Vedana Nupassana on the feelings, being aware of the Vedana that arises with each moment and the whole sequence of the breath. Even one can see the Vedana changing at the beginning, middle, and end of the in-breath and the out-breath. And then in terms of the states of mind, or the mind, the Chitta Nupassana, being aware of a Chitta, that one can discern whether the Chitta is affected by greed or aversion or not, free from those, whether the Chitta is contracted or expanded, whether the Chitta is sunken or restless. All of these states can be also clearly seen. And then in terms of the Dhammanupassana, the fourth state of mind, even without leaving the breath for 1 minute, all of these experiences that can be seen, clearly observed, and noticed, that we can remember. This part of mindfulness is to remember to be mindful, so we can remember to be aware of these aspects of the breath itself as we're experiencing it. And then when it comes to the Dhammanupassana, one can even experience when the negative states or the wholesome states are present, in terms of the hindrances or the factors of awakening, that one can not forget to recognize each passing mental moment, whether the state of mind is helping us or hindering us. And if you can see what helps, then you want to stay there. If you can see what hinders, then quickly it's very easy to give it up if you can really see it as it is in its real character. That's part of the Dhammanupassana. Or even seeing impermanence itself within each in-breath and out-breath, seeing the impermanence, seeing the impersonal and selfless aspect of the breath meditation when one has gone more deeply into it and let go of other kinds of thinking, and how even when the meditation is really good, that one can see how the breath itself is a formation. The breath itself is conditioned, and the meditation on the breath is also conditioned. And so even we see that those things are still conditioned, and then the mind becomes willing to let go of clinging to those states, of any kind of grasping after those states. So with that explanation, why don't we come into a good meditation posture. Dear friends, I'd like to welcome the Wat Put Oniswern. I wasn't 100% remembering whether it was this week or next week that I was going to have the pleasure of having the Wat with us. So thank you for joining us. with our good respects to the Venerable Ajahn and the Bhikkhu Sangha there. Tonight is a full moon night, and our program is going to be going up until 8:30. We will not be continuing the program until 9 o'clock tonight. So I hope that those at the watch who might be wishing that they could have a bit more time for Dhamma discussions or practice or whatever, you may continue on your own between 8:30 and 9 o'clock. But I'm obliged because of things that we need to do here to close this meeting at 8:30. The Pali word about the nimitta is usually translated as a sign, but sometimes it's translated as a foundation or a theme of meditation. I was looking into some discussions among the Sangha about whether the meaning of the nimitta evolved throughout the history during the time of the Buddha, or whether these layers of meaning all kind of like fit together. So when we see an object, or when we encounter an object with our senses, there's that contact through the senses, and then something is happening within the material body, where this stimulation or these electric impulses are being presented. There's actually thousands of different ways that any particular moment could be experienced and presented, because the flow of what's just going on with the physical nervous system is so vast and so complicated, and yet the mind is choosing what to make of it, how to interpret this flow of this stream of impulses, and to make them into coherent objects, into phenomena that are significant, that have some meaning. And so then those choices that we make, the mind takes hold of some particular feature of what's going on. And that's how we know an object. This, what I'm describing from a more of a modern perspective, is similar to the meaning of the Pali phrase nimittam ganhati. So grasping a nimitta. It doesn't even have to mean grasping in the sense of upadana, that karmically negative phenomenon where the mind, which is affected by greed and ignorance, is grasping after existence and creating conditions that keep us turning around and around in samsara. It's maybe even something that's more softer than that. Dr. Cohn, Margaret Cohn, who wrote this wonderful new dictionary, which is now available, freely available online. We used to have to buy these 3 very thick, large, really large green volumes of books with a small print in order to have the advantage of Dr. Cohn's scholarship. But just recently, within the past year, they've announced that this dictionary has been put up on the internet, and it's easy to search. And her way of describing the Pali language is so much more clear and much more free from errors than what we used to depend on the Pali English dictionary that was composed in 1870. Well, we've learned a lot about since then. People have been had many more opportunities to look more deeply and more carefully into the text and have better scholarship. So we've got this good dictionary now. She says that the nimittam ganhati, this taking hold of the nimitta, is it means that one marks, apprehends the characteristic features, apprehends an object or the appearance in various ways, distinguishes, identifies an object. Or it could mean, another thing that it can mean is one apprehends and responds emotionally to some object or some appearance. So if an unskillful person grasps the sign of beauty, not practicing yoni somani sikara, or wise attention, but instead giving unwise attention to the sign of beauty, that can stir up all kinds of greed. But if one is contemplating something which is inspiring and uplifting, like seeing, even seeing impermanence, or seeing the Brahma Viharas, or reflecting about the qualities of the Buddha, that it's possible that there can be a kind of comparatively wise directing the mind that picks up those themes of contemplation in a way which is uplifting and useful. And so then the emotional response, when it's guided by wisdom, can be helpful to keep us going in meditation. But in this case, so this process of awareness connecting with an object has to do with the nimitta, and that's very similar to what most of us learned. The most common definition that we hear about is that the nimitta is the general aspect, the general appearance, the surface quality, and that could be followed by giving attention to investigating the details. So that nimitta is the overall appearance, and then there's the details. But then another kind of aspect that we can see in this sort of description about how the mind works is that the nimitta is a kind of a precursor or a proximate cause for the arising of a thought or the arising of a perception. So You could even, sometimes the nimitta is considered like an omen or a sign or a portent. Somebody who's a magician or a soothsayer could read the nimitta, like reading the tea leaves, in order to make a prediction about the future. So that's the nimitta in that case is something that's leading to something else. So a nimitta is about causation. So the wholesome or unwholesome, or the skillfully taken or unskillfully taken, and nimittas can be leading us onward into our practice to take things on in a way which is beneficial and onward leading. And so then, in that case, when Venerable Bhikkhuni Dhammadina said the 4 foundations of mindfulness are the nimitta of samadhi, it's like they are the ground of samadhi. They're the ground and the proximate cause and the precursor of samadhi. So if one wants samadhi, if they would practice to continuously direct the mind towards awareness of the form, of the material form, as in the continuously changing manifestation of the material form and within our own living human body, and continuously training the mind in order to continuously and carefully be aware of the Vedana as it arises, be aware of the constantly changing states of mind, which are as difficult to grasp as a swarm of minnows in a pond, and yet they can be seen and understood clearly. And then even with that awareness, the different phenomena of the Dhamma could arise to our understanding in a way that has got a clarity. So you could say, even like when an insight arises, like if you thought you understood impermanence, but you didn't really understand it, and then because of your practice, because of your contemplation and your efforts in listening to the Dhamma and practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness, it could happen that something changes, something changes in our experience, like in the mind. The mind goes from dark to bright within a moment, or from bright to dark within a moment, and there could be this this real sense of a discovery about how changeable everything really is. And then with those discoveries, this is my understanding of Dhammanupassana, the mindful contemplation of the Dhammas, is that these insights into the nature of the Dhamma could come up. And then if one is practicing mindfulness, then you would try not to forget them. You would try to be, to hold a more continuous awareness, to keep the presence of mind so that you have the presently aware, this is dukkha, or this is the cause of dukkha, or oh, this is the letting go of dukkha, and to experience these things directly, internally, with that mindfulness after we've somehow realized them. This is just my idea. There's another wonderful sutra that we've discussed before that some of you might remember, called the Sutra on the Ahara, the Nutriment Sutra, in connection with the 5 hindrances and the 7 factors of awakening. And this teaching is very much directed to what are the proximate causes, or the supportive causes, or the special conditions which lead to either the hindrances becoming stronger and stronger, or else lead to the hindrances becoming weaker and weaker and finally disappearing, or what leads to the arising, the strengthening, the development and perfection of the factors of awakening, or what leads to them becoming weaker, not arising, or if they're present, becoming weaker and even disappearing. So those special set of causes, in part, is sometimes described as nutriments, and sometimes also described as nimittas, as a causation. I'm going to just refer to the enlightenment factor of sati, mindfulness, which is the first of the Sambhojjhangas. In the Ahara Sutta, it says that there are these 4 foundations of mindfulness. Giving proper attention to them, giving yoni samanasikari, and having that proper wise attention to grow and develop and to be practiced over and over again, many times. That's the factor for the arising of the factor of sati, the awakening factor of sati, which you see elsewhere. This awakening factor of sati is able to comprehend, perceive, and notice all of the other factors, and able to perceive them in balance and be giving a certain kind of a guidance, so that you might know that if restlessness is present, this is not the right time to try to practice investigation of Dhamma, because the investigation of Dhamma factor will make the mind even more restless. Better to focus on a tranquil subject. But then if the mind is very sleepy or full of sloth, feeling lazy, then it could be, and you recognize the state of mind, then you have the possibility of bringing up, directing the mind and paying attention to the factors of the investigation of qualities. And in the Ahara Sutta, the particular aspect of the qualities that they suggest directing the mind to is there are qualities that are skillful, those that are unskillful, those that are blameworthy and blameless, those inferior and superior, those on the side of dark and those on the side of bright. So that kind of remembering that if something has arisen in the mind, some emotional reaction or some trend of thinking, even some deluded thinking or some kind of story that the mind is telling us a story, and if that story is unskillful and blameworthy, if we are using this investigation of dhammas, we recognize it, and we don't think that it will be fine for us to just go ahead and spend the whole meditation session justifying our emotions by concocting more and more stories to justify negative emotions. Instead, one would apply that great investigation to it and said, wow, look how it is with this body and mind, how there was some contact and some kind of like feeling arose, some kind of perception arose that was unpleasant or something like that, and how the mind uh, uh, reacted by beginning to concoct some kind of a perception or a story, which then brought about a synergy of an escalation of some kind of emotion. So with mindfulness, you see this whole process. You know it's unskillful, and then when you know it's unskillful, then you don't want to stay there. It becomes very easy to emerge out of those states. And likewise, with the wholesome and beautiful qualities, you can know which ones are going to help right now, and which ones are ones that you want to develop. This is very similar to the way that right effort is laid out in the Eightfold Noble Path in terms of the wholesome and unwholesome factors of the mind or states of mind, and knowing how to arouse energy and stir up energy by to take care of those factors depending on what side they're on. And so you can see then how if the mind is kind of dozy and drowsy and maybe a bit dull or drifting off into pleasure, that then just directing awareness to look out for these factors. How is the mind? Is it bright or dark? Blameless, blameworthy, and so on. And that will immediately rouse up the energy and let us come quickly out of the drowsy state. Within the commentary to the Sutta on the nutriments, there are lists given in the commentary of the factors that support each one of the factors of awakening. And I find these definitely can be useful if they're learned. I'll just give, but they don't seem to be as fundamental and as powerful as the short statement that I quoted at the beginning, that the four foundations are the four kinds of mindfulness meditation, the four objects of mindfulness meditation, are the foundation for samadhi, for unification of the mind. I'll give you an example of how some of the commentarial descriptions can be useful, but maybe not as profound. If you wanted to have the factor of PET, or meditative rapture, I actually always had the idea that becoming skillful with the hindrances and applying really strong and careful mindfulness and investigation into the hindrances until finally one breaks through the grip or the mastery that the hindrances have over us, and instead becomes the master. So that, they say that even there's no difficulty or no there's nothing that's not a useful object for mindfulness. Even if one is all caught up with having some like horrible thoughts and getting into some kind of terrible condition of being completely carried away or completely intoxicated with something or something like that. If you could remember to be mindful, then you're able to come out of it, and then eventually you're able to become the master, so that all of the like the bad tendencies that we inherit from however many eons of habits of the mind through the gazillions of choices that we've made in the past that have given us a mind that's got these very strong habits, then uh, uh, we broke it, and we're no longer dominated by the hindrances. Just seeing them and seeing clearly how they operate enables the hindrances to be just dispersed, allayed, and evaporated. And see, to me, I always thought that this PT factor will come about when we realize that that work has been accomplished to some extent, and that just at this moment, the mind is not being attacked by hindrances and negativities, that instead the mind is free of those states. A person in the commentary, they say that this awakening factor can come about through recollection of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, a recollection of sila, recollection of generosity, recollection of the devas, recollection of peace. So in all cases, these are like bright, inspiring, uplifting, and you could say energizing meditations, because they just lift the spirits and make us feel happy, right? But uh, 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 I'm not trying to criticize the commentators, but I think that there's a more deeper way that the grounds for rapture. In terms of the grounds for samadhi, they're really the same thing, because entering samadhi is where rapture can come up the most strongly. The things that are the foundation for serenity and freedom of distraction are the very things that are the nimitta for the awakening factor of samadhi. So sati and samadhi do go hand in hand, even though they're quite distinct from each other. So one would practice mindfulness until all of the other unwholesome states have been thoroughly taken care of. And then the mind no longer requires the diversity or the wide perspective, the wider focus of mindfulness, and instead is wishing for more tranquility, wishing for more of a restricted attention, which is focusing inwardly into Samādhi. So use mindfulness to know where you're at, what your state of mind is, what factors are present for you, even what's going on with you physically. And then try to develop the factors of awakening, which are the right factors for that time. And so you don't have to practice all the factors of awakening all the time. You don't have to always practice them just in their cumulative order. But instead, once you've developed some knowledge about that, you can use your discretion and choose which factor is the most beneficial and the most useful right now that's arising for you, and which could be further developed and further stabilized. As you practice in that kind of flexible and intelligent way, it is possible to reach that kind of deep meditation where the higher knowledges are a possibility, including, in the end, the knowledge of the destruction of taints, the knowledge that one has done what needed to be done. Yeah, so with this somewhat academic type talk, I apologize, but it's not really academic to me. I feel that it's actually a matter of some urgency that we would learn and reflect until, to some extent or other, some insight awakens for us. And when something awakens for us, then we keep it in mind. We remember to keep that present and to cultivate it. I would welcome any comments or questions about this, or any report from your own experience about how practicing mindfulness helps the mind to become unified and calm. Okay, Richard.
Thank you, Ayya. So this Pali term sati, which has been connected with this idea, sort of a Western coined term, mindfulness, really just means memory, to remember. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to remember not to get distracted. And the more you can remember not to get distracted, it can be different ways. You can contemplate the Buddha, you can contemplate the Dharma, you can contemplate the Sangha like that. That's those that you can do the Brahma Viharas, you can do the mindfulness practices, like in the Satipatthana Sutta. All those things are meant for you to focus your mind and not get distracted, to remember to keep your mind focused. And when you have that ability to focus your mind, you can then go past the five hindrances, and gladness will arise because you're not bothered by the five hindrances. So you have a happy, peaceful mind. Buddha describes one way, he says, possessing this noble restraint of the faculties, he experiences unsullied bliss within himself. That's one quick description connected with the Upali Sutta in the book of Tens, in the Anguttara Nikaya, Sutta number 99 in the book of Tens. So then when you start going into the jhanas, what are you doing? You're peeling things off. Okay, your mind is talking to itself about Dharma. You're not just talking about anything when you're getting into that state. Okay, then you calm that down. So you stop that talking mind going on. And then you slowly, with the different levels, you let the bliss, go down, right? These are all distracting things. And finally you end up in the fourth jhana, which Buddha describes as purity of sati, purity of remembering, so that you're totally undistracted at that point, and that's called equanimity, because you're not being pulled over here, you're not being pulled over there. You're just completely settled in your mind, and from that position, the Buddha says it's like a man who comes upon a clear lake high in the mountains. I don't know how many people have experienced. You may have experienced that going on the Appalachian Trail or something. I'm not sure what's on there, but I've experienced that going up into mountains in the Himalayas. You come to these small lakes, but the water is crystal clear. So you come up there and you look in the water and you can see, Buddha says, you can see everything. You can see the fish swimming around, you can see the rocks, the sand, the plants growing, whatever, through that crystal clear. So the mind is now crystal clear. It's not being distracted by anything. And so that's kind of the gateway by which you can then go on to Chaito Vimukti, liberation of mind, and then possibly full arahantship with Pana Vimukti, which is commonly translated as liberation by wisdom, but Pana I prefer to just call understanding, because it's the understanding, it's the penetrative mind that is completely understood, the teaching. So that's why sati, this remembering, is such an important factor, to hold the mind steady. That's what you're doing. You're training yourself to hold the mind steady. So, and that's why the very advanced students or the Buddha himself, that's why they can quickly go into any level of jhana. Is that just like a strong man flexes his arm, they can go up to any level very quickly because they've developed that complete control of their mind, which allow, and they've learned what the states are and so they can just jump to them, instantaneously, to any one of those states, even the formless states, etc. Anyway, that probably talked a little long, but
thank you so much, Richard. I appreciate it.
I hope somebody got some. Thank you for listening.
In addition to what Richard said about memory and remembering to be mindful, to be not distracted, I want to repeat that the four foundations of mindfulness. Some different teacher could have had a different four foundations that they thought would lead to developing sati. They could have given a lot of concepts, and thinking about a whole bunch of concepts would lead to sati. Or they could say that thinking about God would lead to sati. Or they could have said thinking about babies and flowers would lead to sati, or some kind of thing like that. But the Buddha said, this giving of continuous awareness of the body, the vedana, the chitta, or the state of mind, and the Dhamma that's manifesting, has got a power to create that situation where you're like with that crystal clear lake and you can see everything. That's what arises if by just directing the attention in that way. And then, perhaps there's a kind of like a transformation where the mind, which is not dispersed or not distracted, comes very naturally, because what one can see is so fascinating, so interesting, so revealing, and so beneficial. I'd like to call on Shari.
Thank you, Ayya. I love that analogy of a crystal clear lake. I remember once when I was in college, it kind of brings back another memory to me when I was in college and I was really struggling with life. And I remember one of the college professors said to me, "Well, Shari, there's this old Zen proverb of, a cup of mud. And if you stir it up, it's all muddy and you can't see through it. But if you just take the stick out, the mud settles and the water's clear." Kind of along those same lines. I just wanted to comment on mindfulness as being a very practical step on the Eightfold Path. And I find it essential day in and day out for living my life. I meditate right now. I'm meditating pretty much every morning. And it really, as long as I do that, I find that I can kind of make it through my day with a lot of calmness and non-reactivity. For me, that's what mindfulness is essential for, keeping myself from reacting impulsively to stimuli, to greedy impulses, to aversion, like things that I feel. If I'm aware of my feelings, I can make a much more informed choice. So I guess that's all I wanted to share, was just, you asked how we use mindfulness to keep our mind clear. For me, I just find it a really essential part of my day at this point in my life.
Thank you so much. I'm going to call on Sheila. You're muted.
I guess that would help. Good evening. Thank you. I have been, when I meditate, there are times when I focus on sati. There might be times when, for several days or weeks, I'll focus on the Brahma Viharas. And something that's been on my mind lately, and I was reminded of it during your talk at the Marin Sangha Sunday night. Where does samatha practice come in? Because I was participating in a Dhamma talk with a nun who is in Thailand, who was doing a beautiful Dhamma talk, and she spoke of samatha practice, and we did some of that with her. And I'm just wondering, bringing that in, although that isn't the focus with Vipassana and insight. And I just wanted to get more context, and I'm hoping this is a good forum to ask that question. Thank you.
Sure, that's a good question. In the suttas, there's one particular sutta that speaks about how the liberation or awakening happens. And it said that for some persons, the shamatha comes first and vipassana comes second, sort of following right after. And for some people, the vipassana comes first and the samatha comes in right after. For some people, they go together like a pair of oxen who are evenly matched, who are yoked together, and they come in together side by side. So we don't see samatha and vipassana as being a type of meditation or as a meditation technique. Rather, they're really like just two aspects of the practice: calming of the defilements or the taint until they finally disappearing, and the arising of wisdom. So you could say the taint of ignorance is sort of like the opposite to the presence of vidya or wisdom. But then especially the taint of sensuality and longing for existence, those two are typically causing a lot of agitation. And so then the samatha practice is making those get weaker and weaker and weaker. And so that seems to make more like a space for the vipassana or insight to arise. So it really, I don't think of them as being two different practices, but instead, you could think of in the Eightfold Noble Path, actually there's 3 steps in the Eightfold Noble Path that are called part of bhavana, part of meditation. One is the right effort, learning how to read the state of mind and to just work with the light, bright, and dark states of mind. Then there is the sati, which is described in terms of the satipatthana. So learning how to distinguish, how to notice the objects in the satipatthana and remembering to then stay with it. And then the Samādhi, which is very often described in terms of the first 4 jhanas and the factors of the jhanas. And those 3 are not really like 3 brands of meditation, that you go to one door or in the other door. They're really 3 aspects that really truly work together in one's practice. If a person, it just depends on what you need. That was what I was trying to explain tonight. You got to know yourself and know what you need to go to the next level. Yeah. I guess you could say that practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness is what gets branded as vipassana practice, and practicing for samadhi or practicing for jhana is what gets branded as shamatha practice.